Karim Al-Sayed was a disciplined Dubai police officer sworn to protect, and Layla Al-Maktoum was the elegant, isolated wife of a powerful sheikh, but when their secret affair crossed a forbidden line, it didn't just shatter vows, it triggered a deadly chain of betrayal, surveillance, and murder that would shake the foundation of one of the city's most untouchable families. Officer Karim Al-Sayed was a man who kept to himself. In a city where luxury met discipline, he stood out not because he was flashy, but because he was focused. A respected member of Dubai's elite police force, Karim had built a reputation over the years as a dependable officer, loyal, discreet, and efficient. His sharp instincts and calm demeanor had earned him a coveted position, working as a personal security liaison for Sheikh Omar Al Maktoum, a distant but powerful member of the royal family. The assignment was both prestigious and dangerous in its own way. The Sheikh's estate was a fortress of power, opulence, and secrets. Karim's job was to ensure nothing and no one disrupted the controlled life behind its gilded walls. The Sheikh lived in a sprawling palace on the outskirts of the city. It was a silent world of marble corridors, private gardens, and strict routines. Inside this world was his wife, Layla, a woman few people ever truly saw. Layla was not a typical figure among Dubai's high society. She rarely attended events, was seldom photographed, and had no public role. Many assumed she preferred solitude or that the Sheikh kept her sheltered from the world. In truth, she was trapped in a life she hadn't chosen, bound by obligations. She never questioned until she met Karim. Karim first noticed her during a routine patrol through the east wing of the estate. She was sitting alone in the garden, reading a book under the shade of a palm tree. She looked up, and for a brief second, their eyes met. It was nothing more than a glance, but something shifted. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed. More often. Sometimes by coincidence, sometimes not. A stolen look during a corridor walk. A soft nod across the courtyard. Their silence said more than words ever could. What began as harmless glances quickly grew into something deeper. Karim found himself staying late during his shifts, often hoping to catch even a moment near her. Layla, for her part, began venturing out more often, always near where she knew Karim might be stationed. The distance between them narrowed with every meeting. They began exchanging short notes left in secure places. Eventually, those notes turned into hidden rendezvous, timed perfectly to avoid the dozens of eyes around the estate. Their affair was a careful dance between passion and fear. Neither of them considered what might happen if they were caught. The thrill of secrecy consumed them, making them believe they were untouchable. In a place built on tradition and surveillance, they carved out moments of rebellion. But within the walls of the Sheikh's estate, no secret remained safe forever. Someone had started to notice. A servant with sharp ears. A guard with a sense of timing. And most dangerously, a husband who was not as unaware as they hoped. What they believed to be a hidden love story was already becoming something far more dangerous. Layla had always felt invisible, like an ornament placed carefully in the corner of a gilded room. Her life with Sheikh Omar Al Maktoum was not one of love, but of expectation. She had been married into power, not by choice, but by arrangement. Her days were filled with silence, her movements controlled, and her presence carefully managed. Behind the palace walls, she was treated with respect but not affection. Over time, that absence of intimacy turned to resentment. Karim had given her a glimpse of something she had long forgotten: attention without control, connection without judgment. And in a world as cold as hers, even a small warmth could ignite something uncontrollable. As the affair with Karim deepened, Layla began to change in ways she didn't recognize. She smiled more, moved differently, and seemed more alive. But with that transformation came exposure. The household was not as blind as she hoped. Servants were trained to be discreet, but they were also the eyes and ears of the palace. One evening, a maid overheard Layla humming softly as she walked to the guest wing, a place she rarely visited alone. Another time, a guard noticed Kareem's security logs didn't match his assigned patrol areas. These inconsistencies were small, but frequent, and in a place run by routine, even the smallest break in pattern was a signal. Rumors began as whispers in the staff quarters. The idea that the Sheikh's wife might be having an affair was unthinkable, but the evidence, though circumstantial, was building. Eventually, the rumors reached the ears of the Sheikh's closest advisor, a man known for his loyalty and cold efficiency. He brought the suspicions to the Sheikh in private, careful not to accuse but merely to inform. The Sheikh did not react outwardly. Instead, he gave a single order: monitor both of them silently. Hidden cameras were installed in unused corridors and quiet corners of the palace. Kareem's phone was cloned, his movements traced, and the encrypted messages between him and Layla were intercepted. What Sheikh Omar uncovered confirmed his worst suspicions. He did not confront Layla. He did not raise his voice or summon Kareem. Instead, he waited, watching as their deception unfolded under his command. His pride was injured, but his anger was cold and methodical. Layla, unaware of the growing danger, continued to meet Kareem, believing they were careful. She dreamed of escape, of leaving her gilded prison and starting a new life somewhere far from the desert, where no one knew their names. Kareem was hesitant but tempted. He had never risked so much for anyone. But neither of them knew that their future was already being rewritten without their consent. The Sheikh began to craft a plan. He didn't want scandal. He didn't want divorce. He wanted silence. A solution that preserved his honor and erased the humiliation quietly. Kareem would have to disappear, but in a way that no one could trace back to the palace. As the lovers continued their secret affair, the walls around them were quietly closing in. Kareem had grown used to the rhythm of secrecy. The late-night meetings, the coded messages, the discreet touches in shadowed hallways, it all became part of his life. He believed he was in control, careful with every movement and calculation. Layla, too, felt invincible. The fear that once haunted her had faded into hope. They spoke of escape, of distant cities where no one knew them, where her name carried no weight and his badge meant nothing. But while they dreamt in silence, a trap was already being laid beneath their feet. The summons came in the form of a routine reassignment. Kareem received instructions to report to one of the Sheikh's private villas on the outskirts of the Al Mamun Desert. The message was official, signed by the security director himself, and marked as urgent. It said the Sheikh had concerns about threats to one of his lesser-known properties and required a discreet inspection. Kareem, though puzzled by the unusual assignment, obeyed without question. He assumed it was a temporary post, perhaps only a day or two. When Kareem arrived at the villa, he found it eerily quiet. The property was isolated, surrounded by nothing but sand and heat. There were no staff members, no security team, not even a driver. The main doors were unlocked and the electricity was on, but there were no signs of recent use. He tried contacting his superiors for clarification, but there was no response. His phone signal was weak, and the satellite radio provided in the patrol vehicle had mysteriously malfunctioned. Still, he told himself it was just a mix-up and began a basic inspection of the property. Back at the palace, Layla received a message from an untraceable number. It was a photo of Kareem standing alone near the villa, taken from a drone or a long-range camera. The message below it read, "Your lover awaits judgment." Her heart froze. She tried calling him, but every attempt failed. Panic set in. She knew immediately that the Sheikh had discovered everything. Every step, every note, every glance had been watched, stored, and used against them. She rushed to find someone to help but quickly realized that all her communications were being monitored. Her freedom had vanished overnight. The next morning, the news came swiftly and without detail. Kareem's body had been found near the villa. According to the official report, he had died in an accidental fall from the second-story balcony while investigating a possible break-in. There were no witnesses, no signs of struggle, and no forensic anomalies, at least according to the report. His death was ruled a tragic accident, and the file was closed within days. A private funeral was arranged, attended by only a few colleagues. The department praised his service and honored his dedication. But those closest to Karim, especially Detective Samia Noor, couldn't ignore the unease. She had trained under him, trusted him, and knew he was too careful to make such a mistake. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And while the case was buried quickly, questions lingered like echoes in the desert wind. Detective Samia Noor couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone terribly wrong. She had worked with Karim for years and knew him as one of the most disciplined officers in the department. The idea that he would fall from a balcony during a routine inspection didn't make sense. He was cautious by nature, methodical in every move he made. The official explanation felt rushed, as if someone wanted the story buried as quickly as possible. Though she was warned not to interfere, Samia began her own quiet investigation. Driven by instinct and loyalty, she started by reviewing Karim's recent assignments and communication logs. The villa where he died hadn't been listed as an active location in over 6 months. There were no recent threats, no reports of break-ins, and no scheduled inspections in that area. When she requested access to the internal reports, she was denied under the excuse of classified private security matters. Undeterred, she turned to backup archives and recovered copies of Karim's patrol records. That's when she noticed something unusual. His GPS movements in the days leading up to his death didn't match the official security logs. There were missing hours, unexplained detours, and locations he shouldn't have visited. Samia managed to retrieve a partial backup of Karim's phone from the department's digital storage. With the help of a trusted forensic technician, she uncovered deleted messages, some encrypted, others disguised as system notifications. Among them was a message from a contact saved only as L. It read, "He suspects. We have to be careful. Let's wait a few days." The timestamp was just 3 days before Karim's death. This wasn't just a case of misjudgment or accidental injury. It was a calculated event, planned with precision. Digging deeper, Samia turned her focus to the Sheikh's estate. With a few well-placed inquiries, she discovered that hidden cameras had been recently installed in parts of the palace that were normally private: hallways near guest rooms, unused salons, and the garden wing. This was highly irregular. When she tried to request the surveillance footage, she was told it had already been wiped for security protocol updates. That only confirmed her suspicion: someone was trying to erase the past. Her investigation began drawing attention. A warning came quietly, first an anonymous message on her office computer, then a manila envelope left on her car seat with only one sentence typed on a slip of paper: "Leave the dead to rest." Friends within the department began avoiding her. Superiors grew distant. Samia realized she was now walking a dangerous line, one that could cost her not just her job, but her life, but she couldn't stop. The more she uncovered, the more convinced she became that Karim had been silenced to protect someone powerful. She compiled her findings into a secret report and backed everything up in multiple locations. If anything happened to her, the truth would still find a way out. The web of lies was thick, but she was determined to follow it to the center, even if it meant confronting the people no one dared to name. Samia knew she was running out of time. Every step forward in her investigation brought her closer to the truth and closer to danger. The silence from her colleagues had become chilling. Doors once open were now shut. Conversations ended abruptly when she entered a room. She had officially been removed from the Karim case, reassigned to a minor administrative role with no access to active investigations. But the warning signs only fueled her determination. She had seen enough to know that Karim's death wasn't an accident. It was a message. She compiled everything she had into one final report. It included Kareem's tampered patrol logs, the deleted message from Layla, the inconsistencies in the security files, and the strange behavior of the estate staff. But it wasn't just what she found, it was what she couldn't. Footage erased. GPS data scrambled. Witnesses who had suddenly left their posts or gone silent. This wasn't a sloppy cover-up. It was orchestrated by someone with influence powerful enough to erase traces with precision. There was only one person who fit that description, Sheikh Omar. Unable to act through official channels, Samuel turned to someone outside the system. An old friend of Kareem's, now working as a journalist abroad, agreed to publish the report anonymously. Within days, a story titled "The Officer, the Wife, and the Vanishing Truth" appeared on an independent news site based in Europe. It quickly gained attention. The article didn't name the Sheikh directly, but the details were unmistakable. Images of Kareem, excerpts from recovered messages, and a timeline of suspicious events laid bare a scandal hiding behind polished marble walls. The fallout was immediate. International media began circling, asking questions the authorities refused to answer. Embassies issued vague statements about respecting domestic investigations. But inside Dubai, the report was blocked. Filtered from local networks. Those who dared to discuss it were silenced. Some said the journalist who published the story was detained while passing through a nearby airport. Others claimed he simply vanished. Layla, the woman at the center of the scandal, disappeared without a trace. No photos, no statements, not even rumors. Some believed she had been sent away quietly, perhaps to a private estate in another country. Others whispered she had paid a heavier price. The Sheikh remained untouched, unbothered in public. He made no comments, hosted lavish events, and projected calm. But behind the scenes, his circle tightened. Samia knew she couldn't stay. Within days of the report going live, she received an official notice terminating her from the police force for unauthorized use of restricted materials. She left the country under a different name, slipping through airport security with forged documents and a bag containing only essentials. Her life in Dubai was over, but the story didn't vanish. In the quiet corners of the internet, people continued to share Kareem's name, Layla's photo, and the questions that were never answered. And somewhere, far from the glittering towers and controlled silence, Samia kept watching, because sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. It waits in the shadows, telling stories the powerful try to erase.